Hey there, welcome back to part 4 of the series I've been doing to help you figure out why it is so hard to be consistent when you're trying to eat healthy and lose weight. So this is one of the most common frustrations and obstacles I hear from women who want to lose weight or who are struggling to keep it off. They tell me over and over again that it's just so hard to be consistent, and because they're not consistent, they're not able to get to their goals. And so the whole purpose of this series is to give you 5 of the most common pitfalls that stop people from being able to eat healthy consistently. And so the one I'm sharing today is a big one. It's a really common one. We're going to look at why overwhelming yourself when you're trying to lose weight just creates a recipe for disaster. And I think this is what happens for a lot of people. So I want to dive into that today and talk about why this idea of overwhelming yourself when trying to lose weight can make it hard to be consistent. And then I'll give you some really practical ideas on how to approach it instead so that it feels easier and less overwhelming to be consistent with weight loss. But real quick, before diving into that, if we haven't met yet, I'm Christina Johnson. I'm a transformational nutrition coach and founder of the Emerge Weight Loss Program. And that is the step-by-step program that I use to help women create a healthy, consistent lifestyle so that they can lose weight for good and be able to keep it off without feeling like they're on a restrictive diet. Okay, so let's dive in. So today's obstacle that leads to a lack of consistency is overwhelming yourself when you're trying to lose weight. And so I'd love to hear from you. Do you feel like this has ever been an issue? And you can just put yes or no in the comments. But have you ever tried to eat healthy or make some changes so that you could improve your health or lose weight, and it just felt so hard, or it felt really overwhelming, or it was just really hard to stick with it? I think that this is a really common obstacle. So let me know if you can relate to that at all. Put a yes or no in the chats. And I want to go over 4 ways that we overwhelm ourselves when we're trying to lose weight. And as I go through these 4 ways, I'd love to know if you can relate to any of them at all. So the first way that we often overwhelm ourselves is by trying to make too many changes all at once. Like, how many of you are guilty of this? Put a 1 in the comments if you can relate to this first way. So I think the first thing we need to recognize is that change is hard. It is hard to change our eating habits. It is hard to create new healthy habits like exercise and drinking water and cutting sugar and whatever it might be. And so what I think oftentimes people do is they think, okay, I'm starting this new weight loss plan. And so starting on Monday, I'm going to drink 64 ounces of water a day. I'm going to exercise 4 times a week. I'm going to cook a healthy meal every night. I'm giving up sugar. I'm all the things. And we feel like we have to do all of these things right away, starting on Monday. And that can just be overwhelming because we set the bar way up here. And it is hard to make that many changes. It takes time to really figure out how to make those habits part of your new daily routine. And so I think that is a really common way that we tend to overwhelm ourselves, is that we feel like we have to do too much right away. And then it feels too hard to do all that. So it's easy then to just throw in the towel. So let me know, put a 1 in the comments if you have ever overwhelmed yourself in that way by trying to make too many changes all at once. Okay, the second way we tend to overwhelm ourselves when trying to lose weight is that we choose this new way of eating that's maybe unfamiliar, and we feel like we have to dive right in. So kind of similar to number 1, but slightly different. So think about this. Let's say you just are eating a typical American diet, fast food, processed food, eating out, or maybe even you've done some traditional diet plans like Weight Watchers or counting calories. And now imagine that you're wanting to try clean eating, and it's not something you've ever done before. So you go to start eating clean, and it's a whole new way of thinking about food. It's a whole new way of cooking. And it can feel really overwhelming to feel like, okay, I'm starting clean eating today and I have to eat perfectly clean every day for the next, month or 2 months or however long. I remember when I first began clean eating, it was a very different way of eating for me at that time. And so there was all these things I had to figure out. Like, for example, I did not cook much. So I had to figure out, how do I cook meat? All I knew how to do was to cook chicken on a George Foreman grill. And then vegetables. I was used to maybe buying like green beans. I'm trying to think. There's maybe like one other vegetable I would buy. And now all of a sudden I'm trying to eat clean and trying to eat all these vegetables. And I didn't even know what half the vegetables were, or what to do with them, or where to find them, or how to cook them. And so this process of eating clean for me, there was a lot of things I had to learn. I had to figure out new recipes. I also had to figure out, how do I handle eating out? How do I eat clean when I'm eating out? Or what do I do? This is back when I was teaching. What do I do when it's parent-teacher conference night and they're ordering in a bunch of pizza and that's not clean? Or what do I do, in social situations? So anytime you're trying to adopt a whole new lifestyle, if you expect yourself to dive right in and embrace it fully from day one, for many people, that can just feel really overwhelming. I know for me, it was overwhelming to try to eat completely clean from day one. So let me know if that has ever been an experience for you, and so just put a 2 in the comments if you can relate to this way of overwhelming yourself, where you're trying to adopt a whole new way of eating or lifestyle and you feel like you have to dive right in. Okay, the third way we overwhelm ourselves when we're trying to lose weight or improve our health is by believing that we need to be perfect in order to be successful. Have you ever done this, where you feel like if you want to lose weight or be successful on a plan, you have to follow it to a T? And I will admit, I am a type A personality. I have many perfectionistic tendencies that I have worked through. And so I've totally fallen into this category. But here's what happens. Your brain has a natural negativity bias. And I see this over and over with the women I'm working with. So let's say, for example, that, and I've seen this, and I can give you an example. I'm working with a woman who's maybe new in Emerge, and we get on a group coaching call, and she tells me, it's just been a really bad week. I've just done awful. I haven't followed the plan. Things aren't going well. And I'm like, okay, let's dive into this a little bit more. And as I'm talking with her, what I find out is it's not like she's not done anything. There were maybe 2 times where she ate off plan, 2 times where she gave in and ate some sugar. And she made it seem like everything was going horribly. But as I asked her more questions, like, yes, she did eat sugar a couple times and she was trying to avoid it. But you know what? She also got her water in every day. She was also packing her lunch and bringing it to work instead of picking up fast food. She also had said no to sugar 5 or 6 times. And so I think what happens is, when we think that we have to be perfect to be successful, that negativity bias kicks in and we start focusing on the 1 or 2 things that we didn't do perfectly. We forget about the whole list of things that we're improving on and getting better at, and we focus on what didn't go well. And the why this matters is that our thoughts are powerful. So if we start thinking, I'm failing, I'm not doing well, this is too hard, I'm never going to be successful, we're going to feel discouraged, we're going to feel unmotivated, and that's when we're going to give in. That's when we're going to stop being consistent, because we feel like it's too hard to be perfect all the time, and understandably so. So let me know if that, number 3, has ever caused you to not be consistent. If you've ever fallen into the trap of feeling like you have to be perfect in order to lose weight. Okay, then number 4, the 4th way we overwhelm ourselves when we're trying to lose weight is by taking in too much information about healthy eating or weight loss. So this is another really, really common one. When I'm talking to women before they join Emerge, I'll get on the phone with them and we'll just talk about what their goals are. We'll talk about things they've tried, and all these kinds of things. So I get to know them pretty well. And what I find out is that most of the women who come to me and join Emerge, they are pretty smart. They are pretty knowledgeable about weight loss and healthy eating, because they'll tell me all of these books they've read and articles they've read. They'll tell me all the information they know about intermittent fasting or keto or, all these different types of eating. They've been on multiple diets. And yet they're still struggling with their weight. And here's what I think one of the issues is. When we take in all this information, it becomes overwhelming. Like, have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt overwhelmed or stuck because there's just so much information? I have people tell me, like, I've heard that keto is great and it works really well for people, but then I also hear that I should be careful of saturated fat. Or people talk about high carbs and low carbs. Some people are like, no, you need carbs. Others are telling you to cut it out. And so what ends up happening is it gets really confusing. We don't know what to believe, or we don't know what's going to work best for our body. And so sometimes getting that information overload can backfire because we don't really know where to start. We don't know what's going to work best for us. We feel so overwhelmed that we just don't do anything. We don't take any action. So let me know if you can relate to number 4, that overwhelming ourselves with too much information, and just put a number 4 in the comments. Okay, so those are 4 ways that we tend to overwhelm ourselves when we're trying to lose weight. So quick recap, and again, let me know which of these you can relate to. Number 1 was trying to make too many changes all at once, like trying to do 20 things perfectly on day 1. Number 2 is when we try to adopt this whole new lifestyle or whole new way of eating and think we have to dive in right away and be perfect with it. Number 3 is when we think that we have to be perfect to be successful. Can you see some common themes here? We overwhelm ourselves because we feel like if we're not all in and completely following the plan to a T, that it's never going to work. And number 4 is getting too much information and just not even knowing where to start or what's going to work best for you personally. So those are 4 common ways that, in my experience, women tend to overwhelm themselves when they're trying to lose weight. And the problem here is that when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel confused, when you feel like it's just too hard, then it's going to be really difficult to be consistent. It's going to be really difficult to keep picking yourself up and starting over and constantly trying to stick with it long enough to get results. So what do we do about this? How do we avoid overwhelming ourselves? Or more importantly, how do we lose weight in a way that feels simple, that feels sustainable, so that we can be consistent long enough to get to the end result? So I've got 5 tips for you on how to make this happen. So number 1 is that anytime you're going to begin working on your health or losing weight, it's really important to manage your expectations from the beginning and to enter it with realistic expectations. And so what I mean by this would be a little bit of self-talk. It would be telling yourself, number 1, that this is a big change. If you are starting to eat clean for the first time, if you are starting a new exercise plan, if you're cutting back sugar, just remind yourself, this is a big change. There is a lot for me to figure out and to learn and to understand how to make it work for my body. And it is okay if that takes a little bit of time. The goal is to just every day and every week take steps forward and get closer to that finish line. Get closer to that place where you have adopted this new healthy lifestyle. But so often we start a diet and we want to be at the finish line on day 1. We want to be doing it perfectly on day 1. So the first way to avoid overwhelming yourself and increase your chance of being consistent is to remind yourself when you're beginning that this is a process, it will take time, and it is okay. That every day you are going to take more steps forward to get towards that finish line, and you don't have to be there on day 1. Okay, the second way or second idea to avoid feeling overwhelmed is to make sure that you have a step-by-step plan to follow. And this, I really believe, in my experience working with women, is critical to success, because this combats that idea of having so much information and not knowing where to begin. So instead of trying to like piece together all these like random things that you've learned over the years, if you can have one step-by-step plan where somebody else has pieced together all the information so that you don't have to like think about it so much. You don't have to spend so much time and energy figuring out what to do. Instead, you can spend your time and energy actually getting started and putting it into action. And there's so much value in that. You know, when I first started eating clean, I don't know, it took me probably at least 4 months to really figure out how to make it work for me. And so it would have saved me so much time and so much energy and so much stress if I could have just like had somebody guide me through the process. And that is what a step-by-step plan does. So again, you don't have to figure out and piece together all the pieces to what it takes to lose weight in a sustainable way. But instead, you can just say, okay, this is what somebody who is an expert in this knows is the most helpful thing to focus on first. Here's what to focus on second, and so on. So having a step-by-step plan to follow dramatically cuts back the overwhelm and the chances that you will stick with it. Okay, tip number 3 is when you are approaching any weight loss plan or healthy eating plan, we want to focus on a couple key habit changes at a time. And so, for example, how this works practically, this is what I do in the Emerge program, is that every week when someone is in Emerge, I tell them, okay, in my experience, focusing on these 2 or 3 key areas first is going to be most helpful for you. So for example, somebody's in Emerge week 1, I usually make sure they're getting enough water in, I make sure they're reading labels and figuring out how to start cutting back sugar. So they're just focused on a couple key habits. And then week 2, we add in a couple more habits, and week 3, and we do that for 3 months. And what happens is by the end of 3 months, you've actually stuck with a new way of eating, but you've also built this really solid foundation of habits. So you have all these healthy habits under your belt that you've been doing, that you've been slowly implementing, so that by the time you're done, you feel confident that now this is something that you can continue and maintain because you've worked up to it. So I've really found that approach helps people feel less overwhelmed. It feels a little bit easier, especially if you're busy, if you have a lot of responsibilities, if you're feeling resistance to making changes. This really, truly seems to be a way that works for most people. Number 4, my fourth tip for you is to work on the all or nothing mindset. And I will tell you, this is not easy. It is not easy if you're a type A person, if you are someone who feels like things have to be perfect, or if you're someone that's done diets in the past where you felt like you had to do it all to be successful. It takes a lot of time to undo that, but it is really, really important because we want to make sure that perfectionism, that all or nothing thinking doesn't stop you from being consistent. So the goal here is to know that you can eat really well, and yeah, maybe you make a mistake. Maybe you give in and eat something you weren't planning on and eat some dessert or some sugar. What we need to realize is it's not the end of the world. I don't need to eat 2 or 3 pieces because I've blown my diet, but I can eat that one thing. I can move on and just my next meal, eat healthy again. And so that's the point where we want to get to, where it's not like we're all in on eating healthy or all out, but we want to be in the middle ground where we're eating healthy consistently 90% of the time, and it is okay to make exceptions here and there. And then the 5th tip I have for you to avoid feeling overwhelmed when you're trying to lose weight is to get a coach. This truly can make all the difference because for a few reasons. When you are working with a coach, it's somebody, number 1, that's helping you stay accountable to be consistent, who is checking in with you regularly to make sure things are going well, but also who can help you work through any obstacles or resistance that you're feeling. You know, I've been working with a woman for a few weeks now, and we were just talking yesterday in a coaching session about the fact, number one, that this is a woman who's a very determined, committed type of person. She's been very successful in her career. She's got a lot of like past things that she's done well and accomplished and been successful at. And yet this area of eating healthy has been a struggle. And, and as we're talking, there's some core issues. There's some resistance coming up. There's some hurdles. And instead of just trying to do it all on her own, now she has somebody who she can talk through these hurdles with, who can help her figure out the best way to get over the hurdle, to get over the resistance, so that she can really take the action and get the results that she's looking for. And so having coaching, I've worked with coaches myself for a variety of different things, and it's just a really powerful way to get better, faster, more effective results. So those are just a few tips for you on different ideas on how to avoid feeling overwhelmed so that you're more consistent with eating healthy. And the ultimate goal here is, for most people who are watching this, you're probably wanting to lose weight. And maybe that is so you can fit comfortably in your clothes. Maybe it's because you really just need to improve your health. You want to lower the blood sugar ranges, your blood pressure, cholesterol. You want to be a healthier, active person as you age. Whatever your reason is, we need to get to the core and figure out what is stopping you from being consistent so that you can be successful at making these changes. So I hope these ideas were helpful for you. As a little bit of an action item, here's what I would recommend. I would encourage you to set aside 5 minutes where you can just journal and reflect on the past attempts you've made to eat healthy or lose weight. And to just think about what has stopped you from being consistent? What stopped you from being able to reach your goal and to stay at that goal? And just start to reflect it and think about, was it overwhelming in any way? Was it feeling hard or complicated? Or were you trying to do too much or trying to be perfect? Or maybe there was something else going on. So take 5 minutes and just journal on that and really reflect on what was stopping you from being successful. And you know what? If you are ready to make some changes, to make long-term lasting changes so that you can lose weight, feel comfortable in your clothes, and improve your overall health, and you want support, if you know that having coaching and accountability and a step-by-step plan would dramatically increase your chance of success, then I would invite you to book a complimentary call with me so that we can talk more about your goals. And I will give you my honest feedback and opinion on whether or not the Emerge Weight Loss Method would work for you. So it is a complete no pressure call, and whether or not you work with me in Emerge, you will get a lot of value from this call. You will get clarity on what your goals are. You will figure out some of the obstacles that have stopped you from being successful in the past and have some ideas on the next best steps to take so that you can get to that ultimate goal you have for yourself. So if you're interested in booking a time for us to talk, I will put a link in the comments to my calendar where you can find a time in the next week or so for us to get on the phone and talk more about you and your goals and what it will take to get you there. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to just put them in the chat, and we will talk again soon. I will be back with the 5th and final part of this series on consistency next week. All right, bye for now.